What's up guys, ViperFPV here, and today we're going to be flashing Betaflight 3.4 onto a quad. We're also going to be testing that in a future video too to see how it performs. But really, just wanted to kind of just go over Betaflight 3.4 in a whole and show you how to set it up and show you what pretty much you want to start off with originally before you start tuning and changing things. But before we go ahead and start with actually going showing you how to flash and everything, I just wanted to kind of talk about what features it has. Pretty much the major features it has is it overhauled and improved the filtering with specific focus on improving the defaults. We also optimized and massively improved performance on the F7 flight controller. So if you have an F7 flight controller now, you can go ahead and run 3232 probably on it, as long as you're using a gyro that supports it, and you shouldn't have any performance issues. We also added the ability to use your flight controller as a pass-through joystick, kind of like you can use it either you can use any joystick you want with a simulator, or you can go ahead and use it wirelessly. Say if you wanted to hook up your laptop to your actual TV in the living room and then play from your couch, you don't have to worry about having a cord long enough to be able to play with. You can just go ahead and use it on the 5.8 gigahertz or whatever receiver you have hooked up. Not 5.8, 2.4. We also have added support for flight controllers configured via the Tyrannus with Crossfire installed. We also added support for filter-based RC input smoothing, which if you're not already familiar with, when you send a command to your quad, it does it in steps. This actually smooths that out to make it more smooth. So that's something you can change and change your default, revert back to the original way if you don't like how that is. Other features they added, they did add a acro trainer mode, which you can go ahead and have like it would pretty much limit to how far you can pretty much tilt the quad. So you don't go forward and you start doing flips like crazy. It'll actually kind of get you into, instead of crashing a lot, I guess. They also added a throttle boost mode, which kind of goes with RC smoothing as well, because if you think about it, if you're smoothing out especially your throttle as well, it could cause lag, so they actually added that feature to kind of counteract that. And then we also have added support for accelerated yaw spin recovery, and they also added a paralyze mode, so if you're in a race, you can go ahead and paralyze your quad so everything isn't still on and it's not interfering with anybody else. So let's go ahead and get to the show you how to get everything up, and let me go ahead and go to my computer and show you how to set everything up. Alright guys, so pretty much the first thing you want to go ahead and do when you want to install Betaflight 3.4 is you have to update the configurator. So just go into Google, type Betaflight configurator, just go to the github.com address and it'll bring you right to this, and then just install the one that you need right here. And then once you have it all installed, go ahead and exit this out here, you'll get this screen. First thing I would recommend to do is don't flash anything yet. Go to your CLI and then type in actually now you don't have to worry about, just type in version, so then you know. So this one's running the Omnibus F4, and that's the target I'm going to be using when I flash it. So kind of take a mental note right here of what you're going to be using. And then also what you can do, because you have to do a full chip erase, is kind of just make sure either you can write this down, just pretty much make a mental note of what you're using. So I'm using UART1 as my receiver and UART6 as my smart audio. Yours will be different, but just make a mental note so then you remember when you do 3.4 that you have everything set up that way. And you can do that through all of the things. And you can even do a dump, but it's really, they changed a lot of things, especially with the filtering on 3.4, so it's not advisable. You can probably fix your OSD and all that stuff and kind of import it all, but I'm just going to do it from scratch to show you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect real quick here, and I recommend doing this way because it's the easiest way to get your flight controller into DFU mode, and that's going to be downloading Impulse RC Driver Fixer. And what it's going to go ahead and do is going to make your flight controller go into bootloader mode and install the DFU driver. It doesn't delete anything off your flight controller, it just messes with the DFU driver. And now it's fixed, it says, and then my flight controller is in DFU mode. So then what we're going to go ahead and do is go into Firmware Flasher, show releases and release candidates. And then, like I said, I'm going to use the Omnibus F4 right there. And yours will be different. And then you want to go ahead and pick the newest. In this case, 3.4 is still in a release candidate. By the time you look at this video, it might be already officially released. Just pick the newest 3.4 version or 3.4.1, 2, whatever it will be, and you should be good to go. We already have full chip erase enabled, and we have that. You have to also make sure when you want to download the RC release candidates that you have show unstable releases checked as well. So what I'm going to do is load online, and then it should go ahead and pop up with Flash firmware. And now we're erasing it, and now it's installing Betaflight 3.4. So I'm going to let this go ahead and install, and then I'll be right back. Alright guys, we're back, and I have the firmware flasher was successful. So we're going to go ahead and go to connect, and now we have pretty much a blank slate of a new flight controller to set up. So I remember now that I have my receiver on UART 1, and I also have my smart audio on UART 6. And just go ahead and go ahead and click save. Connect. Make sure it's saved. Yep. And then we're going to go to Configuration tab. And you notice right away they changed a lot of the defaults. And you'll notice that a lot with the filters. But we'll get to that in a second. Just want to go through each page so then you guys understand. And what I'm going to be going ahead and doing is using D-Shot 600 on this quad. We're going to leave that all alone. And then we're also going to be using AK. And I don't, I'm going to disable that and disable that. And I know I do have my board oriented wrong, and I'll do that in a moment. Go ahead and put my quad name in there, Talon, which is a career area Talon. And then right here, we're going to go ahead and select our receiver. We're using a serial-based receiver, and I am using a crossfire receiver. So we're going to hit crossfire right there. And that is done. There. And then down here on other features, these will be the features you want to use. So if you're using LED strip or whatnot, I use telemetry, I use air mode, and it is advised to go ahead and keep dynamic filter on. It is pretty much your last protection. Say you bend a prop or something in a race or anything like that. You want to go ahead and leave this on so you don't have to worry about smoke in a motor. If that does happen and you don't realize it. Everything else looks good here. And everything else, in these right here, you can go ahead and configure your beeper. So if you hate when it beeps doing certain things, this is where you go ahead and disable or enable it. And then right here we have D-Shot beacon configuration, which is a little different than the past configurators. You can pretty much beeps when an aux channel is set for beep. And that's exactly what I'm going to be using. So I don't have a beeper on this one. So we're going to use the motors as a beeper. Then everything else looks okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save and reboot it. I'm leaving the accelerometer on for just the time being, just so I know which way my quad is facing. Let's see here. Go into setup. I'm going to go ahead and tilt my quad around. So it is definitely, looks like 45 degrees, I believe. So we're going to go ahead in here and go into roll. Actually, it'd be yaw. And go into, I'm just going to click 45. Let's see if that fixes it. This is kind of like a guessing game. or if you're smart at math, unlike me. So that looks right. Okay. And I think I hit 46 instead. Yeah, 45. So one more time. And there we go. Let me double check it. Let me make sure it's right. Right, left, forward, back. Actually, I think that looks alright. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that's good. So we're going to go ahead and go into the configurator again, and I'm just going to disable accelerometer. I don't like using it. I just use it honestly for that. It's the most handy feature you can do. So going over down to power and battery, I don't really mess a lot with this. It's using all the onboard stuff, and you can change your minimum cell voltage, maximum cell voltage, and all that stuff to whatever your preferences are. Now the PID tuning, I'm just going to go ahead and just set up my two rates profiles that I usually use. Since this is a racing quad, I do use a little bit of freestyle with it, but not a lot. I usually just bring it out for races. So I'm just going to do that real quick here. And this is how you pretty much change your rates if you're not familiar with that. As you see here, this is your center stick. See, as it doesn't move much, and then as you go farther out on the stick, it deflects a lot more, and you get that full 1,000 degree a second. And RC Expo, I like using it because it does buffer it a little bit, and you get a little more center stick. So I'm going to go ahead and save profile 1. And then I'm just going to set up profile 2 real quick. Actually, profile 2 is this one. I know I use a lot of Expo, don't I? But hey, don't fret if you're using too much Expo. It's there for a reason. Alright. And we have profile 2. Now going to filter settings. This is going to be the biggest change they have. Is you notice right away they disabled all the notch filters, even the D-term notch they disabled. Pretty much their reasoning is because now they have a D-term low pass 1 and a D-term low pass 2 filter. So we're going to go ahead and leave these all on default, and then later after I do my first flight, I'm going to pretty much show you what I do to tune them and kind of go back and forth on that. But right now, I'll just suggest you leaving this all alone until you fly it first and feel like what you want to do to change things up. So we're not making any changes in there. We make sure I save everything one more time. And then our receiver tab, we're going to pretty much just go normally through how to set up your sticks. I'm not going to go through that because that is kind of time consuming. Just one little tip if you don't know already. For your RSSI channel, if you want to go ahead and see your RSSI on your OSD, I think I've been asked a lot of questions on this. In your Tyrannus or whatever you're using, you need to set up a aux channel as your RSSI output. And then once you have that RSSI output, you'll notice it on a switch, like 2000. Then go ahead and go to RSSI channel and assign that. And assign that aux channel. And then that's how you'll get your RSSI on the OSD. Another thing too here is we have RC interpolation that is off. That is on auto, that's correct. And that is pretty much what you, it's like the latency between the radio and the what's it call it, the receiver and the flight controller and all that stuff. Just leave that on auto. And then on modes tab, this is how you're going to set up your switches. And there's I think I have my other Betaflight 3.3 video. I actually did go through setting all this stuff up, which I will leave a link to that in the video description. And I think I did the same thing too for the receiver. but I just didn't go through trimming this, because when you have your receiver, you need to make sure when you're at the bottom of the stick it's at 1,000, the top of the stick's at 2,000, and in the middle, when you're not touching anything, everything's at 1,500 except for your throttle. Your throttle doesn't self-center, so that will either be mid-stick 1,500 and max throttle 2,000. And then we go ahead and go into the motors tab, nothing to do in there, and then the OSD tab is pretty much the same exact thing as prior. Nothing changed there. A couple other features that are also on Betaflight 3.4 that I forgot to point out, and I'll put this right at the end before we close it up, is they also do have, remember I was talking about the RC smoothing, you actually do have to enable that in Betaflight by typing set RC smoothing type equals filter. And then also another feature that I totally forgot to talk about is to set iTerm relax. But I would recommend doing the iTerm relax after your initial flight to make sure that your motors are smooth, not smooth, but not hot. If they're not hot, then go ahead and enable this. This pretty much reduces the bounce back of flips and rolls. So remember in Betaflight 3.3, 3.2, and all the other ones where you do a flip and roll and it'll kind of have a little bounce at the end. This will kind of relax that and prevent that from happening. But it could cause hot motors. If you already had hot motors, it could cause a problem. So go ahead and fly, like I said, suggest fly the defaults, and then go ahead and you can set that if you have cool motors. Now, set RC smoothing, you can go ahead and do that right away if you want to. It's up to you. This will be that whole thing about filtering out that RC smooth, the input from your radio. But do keep in mind, when you do this, it does kind of create a little bit of lag because it is smoothing things out. So you do have to tune for that. So I would probably suggest leaving it off at first and then try it on and then see which one you like. If you like it on, then go ahead and continue tuning with that on. But like I said, start with the defaults, make sure everything looks and works okay with Betaflight 3.4, and then you should be good to go with, that'll be probably my first suggestion to go ahead and do, is set RC smoothing, and then go ahead and set iTerm relax if everything is working out great. So I appreciate you guys watching, and if you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and leave it down in the comments, and I'll try to help you guys out as much as I can. And I am on vacation this week, so you probably won't see the Betaflight 3.4 video. I am bringing my quads I'm actually going right south of Knoxville, Tennessee. I wish I could meet Joshua Bardwell, but that ain't going to be possible since he'll be in quad camp, I believe, in Illinois. But yeah, so I'm going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I'm bringing my quads. I'm going to be flying around at the little new spots I can find. And I'm bringing the family along and actually meeting up my cousin in New York. But yeah, so let's go ahead and look forward to some future videos in Betaflight 3.4, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.